If you have ongoing exposure to controlling people, it's a virtual certainty that you're going to experience blurry boundaries, which is why I've created the extensive online course called This Is Me, Establishing Boundaries with the Controllers in Your Life. There's a link below that will give you all of the details, and I hope that you would find it therapeutic. During my decades of therapy with individuals in my office, I would have all sorts of ideas that I would want to make sure that we would discuss as we're talking about the ingredients for a healthy personality or a positive and healthy way of engaging with others. And right there near the top of the list of ingredients that we would want to focus on is the ingredient of freedom. I would want to make sure that when someone came into my office that in here with me, you get to be free. I want you to feel free to define who you're going to be. I want you to feel free to determine what kind of traits and characteristics you want to have at the core of your personality, and we'll sift all of that out and talk about what that means relative to all sorts of circumstances. You're free to determine who you're going to be when challenges arise, when certain emotions show up. How do you want to manage that? What are your options? Where are we going to go with that? Whenever people differ from you, you certainly are free to determine how you're going to respond. And it would allow us to zero in on what's best and good on the inside of an individual and allow them to claim ownership over all sorts of aspects of the way that they live. Now, when the narcissist would come into my office and I would talk about freedom, now on their side of the equation, they didn't have too much trouble with the word freedom. It's like, yeah, I like to be free. But when we would talk about allowing others or acknowledging the fact that others have the freedom to be who they are, it's like, no. In fact, I would have some that would literally think, you must be crazy. If I'm going to let, as if it's their position to let other people be free, if I'm going to let other people be free, this could lead to chaos. This could lead to chaos, to anarchy and irresponsibility. I mean, who knows what people are going to come up with? And in their mind, they have a power mindset. It's like, well, we need to have somebody that's going to establish all those things. And that's, of course, is going to be me. So in the narcissistic way, and they, of course, are defined by their own selfishness and entitlement, in the narcissistic way of engaging, they've decided, well, here's how you're supposed to think. And these are the priorities you need to have. These are the emotions that I do want to hear about. These are the emotions I don't want to hear about. Here are the values and the standards that you're supposed to prioritize. Here are the people that I think are reasonable to accept. This is the way that projects need to unfold. These are the people that we want to stay away from, and so on and so forth. And they have all sorts of ideas. And when you come along and say, well, what I'd like the freedom to sift that out for myself. I'm willing to talk. And so when you do that, that rattles them. Because you see, you're not playing along. It's like you've seen their script and you've decided, no, I don't want to go according to what your script tells me. And so in your way of thinking, you think, well, what I'd rather do is have a sense of give and take, the ebb and flow in the way that we engage with each other. Can we do that? Or how about a sense of mutual collaboration? Or maybe we can have a bit of flexibility, or I'd like for you to just listen to what I think for once. Can we be open to new ideas? And let's make sure that we take into account subtleties or nuances or distinctives that may be part of the way that we interact with each other. Let's have a sense of us. And when you do that with a narcissist, I mean, it really can rattle them. It's like, no. You see, you exist in the mind of the narcissist to give them supply. And for you to say, well, I'd like to be my own free person, what they hear is, you might run away from me. You might not pay attention to what I had to say. And so rather than take the chance that in your free choice, you might decide differently from me, they go straight into their criticisms. They give orders and commands. They'll argue with you if you say that you think or feel differently than they do. They can be deliberately non-cooperative in the way that they engage. What's going on? Why is your freedom so threatening to a narcissist? Well, first, of course, in their narcissism, these individuals, as I mentioned just a moment ago, they're very entitled, they're very self-impressed, and so they have honestly talked themselves into the notion that says, I really do need to be in control around here. And then, like I say, if you push back, then they're going to interpret that as you being an insubordinate kind of a person, as opposed to just simply being a distinct kind of an individual. In the mind of the narcissist, they have developed a power broker mindset. And this happened way long ago in their earlier years. Now, it could be that they were exposed to highly controlling and critical and judgmental people. It could be that they were on the receiving end of that. One way or the other, they learned, okay, the people who get things done, the people who are the most satisfied, the people who are at the top of the hill are the ones who have dominance, are the ones who can pronounce the authoritative final word. They're the ones who are going to be most forceful. And so they've decided that being overbearing is the way to go. That means you win. And so if you come along and say, well, I'd like to consider myself equal to you, I'd like to have my voice too, that blows that whole way of thinking. Now, in addition, you can see that the more you go into this denial of another person's freedom and you emphasize instead your own overbearing prerogative, what you're doing is you're living with a great sense of compensation. Narcissists have a fear of being a nobody. They have a fear of just people just turning around and saying, well, I don't care what you think. And so when they say you're free, it's like the biggest concern that they would have is, yeah, you may turn your back and go in the other direction and you'll never listen to all the brilliance that I bring to the equation. And so in their compensation for their deep, deep insecurity, then they have to just continue to call the shots. Narcissists are in high survival mode. In their minds, they have to make themselves relevant. And so they don't want to acknowledge that there are 7 billion people on this planet, and there are 7 billion different ways to look at various things in their world. It's like, well, I don't want to be one of 7 billion. And so when I say they're in a high survival mode, they think in terms of you either destroy or you're going to be destroyed. You have to win or you're going to lose. You have to be on top or you're going to be at the bottom of the heap. And so when you come along and say, I'd like to exercise my freedom, then they see you as breaking ranks, and they also see that you're not going to give them the narcissistic supply that they're looking for. And it's like, we're not going to do that. Now, let's recognize, sure enough, that when each individual does take their own freedoms upon themselves, I suppose we could say that there's an element of risk involved with that, because whenever you have the freedom to choose, you can choose good or bad. You can choose helpful or not helpful. You can choose responsible or irresponsible. You can choose to be reliable. You can choose to be rebellious. And that's a risk that we take. By the way, smart, free people will factor in the consequences to those various dynamics, and they'll consider what the consequences are going to lead to, and that's something that can be discussed in group kind of scenarios. So freedom is not synonymous with chaos. Freedom means, though, that each person ultimately is responsible for who he or she gets to be. Narcissists don't like that. It diminishes them, at least in their mind, greatly. So I want you to think, okay, so the narcissist is rattled. The narcissist is threatened when I want to live according to my free choices. Ask yourself this: am I wrong to simply say I'd like to be a free person? Is that wrong? Or you might want to ask, is my freedom something that I have to justify? Do I have to go into the appeasement mode with that highly controlling narcissist? Do I have to suppress my real self? Do I have to tremble if a narcissist is going to be angry because I've selected to be my own free person? I don't think so. And then if that narcissist becomes angry because you've chosen to be your own free self, can we say maybe that tells us more about where they are than where you are? I'm hoping that as you decide to be a free person, you're going to be wise enough to say, yeah, and I want my life to count for something good. Here on Team Healthy and with our channel here, we talk about dignity, respect, and civility. You don't have to do that. But as a free person, you might decide, yeah, that's a good way to go. Freedom is not something that narcissistic individual can give you. Freedom is simply yours. You have the privilege to choose. Now, when a narcissist comes along and says, I don't like that, I don't think that that's a right and good thing, I think that's going to lead to chaos, then my response to that is going to be, you're free to think that way. But the fact that a narcissist does not understand the concept of relational and personal freedom, the fact that that individual is rattled when you decide that you want to be your own free person, only says they don't get it. And when they choose to ignore your freedom to be yourself, the bottom line is your freedom remains what it is nonetheless. It's not contingent upon them recognizing it. Be you. You get to choose. You get to decide. I think that's a reasonable thing for us to start with as we engage in the therapeutic process of you growing into your best version of yourself. And I hope that videos such as this can give you some good food for thought. Gus and I are going to keep bringing more videos in your direction. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so. Hit that like button too. Just hit the like button so you can see Gus again. If you have a need for therapy, and I know many of you do, when you're trying to struggle with the pushback that you're going to get when you develop these kind of ideas. I'm so pleased to know that we're being sponsored by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a link below to their website. It's an online therapy service, and we've received good feedback from that. If that's something that you feel like you would benefit from, I would strongly encourage you to go in that direction. Likewise, I also have my therapeutic courses, and each course has multiple videos and worksheets and guided questions, ready, set, connect about having healthy relationship skills, connecting skills. This is me about establishing those boundaries, free to be about getting away from those controllers. In addition, we have my podcast. We have our website with lots and lots of articles on there. We have my webinars that we're now making available after they've gone live, and my books, etc. Plenty of resources to draw upon. I want you to be free. And in your freedom, I hope that you can decide that you get to choose what your best version of yourself is. And in doing so, it establishes you to be a person of steadiness. You get to claim ownership of yourself. And ultimately, I hope it takes you to your place of peace.